Hi, welcome to the Interaxis YouTube channel, interaxis.io. Today we're going to go back to our traditional finance roots and talk about 401ks. 401k being the retirement account you can use if you work for a company that has actually put together a 401k plan for you. So we need to talk about it. We get a lot of questions. We've managed 401ks in the past, and these are some of the questions we get asked, and we end up having to explain it all. So a lot of the different options you have and who all the players are, because we get calls saying, you know, you're managing our 401k or this company's managing it, and they're sometimes wrong in the nomenclature, and it gets very confusing for people to understand it. So in this first one, I'm going to talk about 401ks from the employee perspective. So if you work for a company and there's a 401k option where you can put money into the 401k plan every year, I want to explain it a little bit to you, explain who some of the players are, how they're getting paid, so you have a better understanding. So first, what is 401k? 401k stands for a piece of the tax code. And the idea of this piece of the tax code basically says that you, as the employee, if you're part of a company that has the 401k plan, you can put money into the 401k plan, right? So your money goes in, originally this is how it was, right? Into a traditional 401k, right? If I work for this company, I can put money in here. And when I put money in, it goes in pre-tax. Okay, what does that mean, pre-tax? Pre-tax means that, let's say, for easy math, I make $100,000 a year, and I put $10,000 into the 401k. From a tax perspective, okay, it will look like, and this is very rudimentary, and I apologize if you're CPAs and you want to get very technical with me, but for the most part, what it looks like is, instead of making $100,000, I made $90,000. The $10,000 goes in here pre-tax. I have not yet paid taxes on this piece of money. It goes in here pre-tax. And why does the government do that? Because they say essentially, you can put your money in here pre-tax. You don't have to pay tax on it yet, because once it goes in here, you won't have access to the cash. You'd be paying taxes on money that you don't actually have. So from a cash flow perspective, that might be hard. So I can decide to put a certain amount of my money into the 401k plan, pre-tax. Okay, so that's what the pre-tax means. If I'm making $100,000 and I put $10,000 into the 401k plan this year, it looks, from an income perspective, like I made $90,000. I get taxed as if I made $90,000. Now, once it's in the 401k plan, this is where I choose how I want it invested. And as it's growing tax deferred. What does that mean? That means while it's in here, while it's in stocks and bonds or whatever else, whether it's earning income, whether it's gains because I bought a stock at 50 and it went to 100, whatever it is, nothing gets taxed inside the 401k plan. So it's growing tax deferred. There is no tax on it as it's growing, which is another great benefit, right? Because I don't have to worry about things like capital gains tax. I don't have to worry about selling things for a loss and tax loss harvesting and all those issues. I just hope it grows. I want this to get as big as possible. Now, here's where I'm retired or I'm at retirement age or something, and I have to start taking money out. Okay, as I pull money out, it is taxable as roughly as income. Again, from a technical perspective, I know CPAs and CFPs and stuff will call me out on this, but it's roughly taxed as income. So if I take out $100,000 one year from my 401k, it's as if I got a $100,000 salary that year. Okay, that's how. Now I'll technically get a 1099. However, that's kind of how it's looked at. It is fully taxable income as I take it out of the 401k. That is the traditional 401k. A few years ago, the government gave the ability to do a Roth 401k. There were already Roth IRAs, and people said, wait a minute, this isn't fair. What if I want to put money in here after tax. So now how does this work? So in a Roth 401k, again, we'll say I make $100,000 and I want to put $10,000, and my company gives me the option to do a Roth 401k. So I put $10,000 in. That $10,000 does not come off my income. I still get taxed on $100,000, even though $10,000 of it is here in this plan. Okay, it goes in here. I invest it. I get my income, my growth, whatever it might be, and this grows tax-free. Now, you'll notice I use a different word, not tax-deferred, tax-free. Why? Because over here, when I'm retired or having to take money out, if I take out $100,000 here, it's tax-free. I don't have to pay taxes on it. Why? Because I paid taxes on it going into the system. Okay, so the government's kind of counting on time value of money, right? They're saying, look, we'd rather have taxes on this $10,000 today, and we'll figure out what to do with it, than have it way over here when you retire. Right, so we get the question a lot, should I do the Roth or traditional? I don't know. I'm not your financial advisor. Those are the kind of questions you talk to your financial advisor about and figure out, should I do the Roth or the traditional, or some plans you can do both. So that's essentially how it works. Now, here's something else that I failed to mention on the traditional 401k part. As your money is in the traditional 401k, you can't take it out, except for certain purposes, right? There's some hardship withdrawals. There's a way to withdraw money for a first-time home purchase, because the government, again, it's all about incentives, right? They want you to buy your first home. They want to see you live the American dream. So if you have money sitting in here in a traditional 401k, you cannot take money out of this until you are age 59 and a half. When you get to 59 and a half, you can start taking money out of your 401k without a penalty. Before that, there's a 10% penalty, and you have to pay tax on what you pull out. So if I pull out $50,000 from this, when I'm 45 years old, I get a $5,000 penalty, plus I pay taxes on the $50,000. It's 1099 to me. Okay, so I really have to think about it if I want to take money out. What it also means is I really have to think about it as I'm putting money in. It's going to be locked in there until I'm almost 60 years old. I really need to think about that. I can't be maxing out necessarily my 401k and not be able to pay my bills, because then I'll have to go into credit card debt and everything. Again, talk to your financial advisor, but that's something you really have to think about. Now, what happens in here? You have to understand that 401ks are governed by, even though it's a tax code, 401k is a tax code, it's governed by ERISA. And ERISA is the law that essentially governs business benefits and compensation and such, to make sure that it's fair. And the idea of 401ks and now ERISA essentially govern, and part of the Department of Labor governing this is they need to make sure that the 401k plan is fair. Why? Because as an individual, if I want to personally put money away for my retirement, I can use an IRA, individual retirement account. Okay, and I can put a certain amount away every year. Currently, $6,500 a year I can put into an IRA. However, in a 401k, whether it's Roth or traditional, I can put in, and this is 2020 numbers, I can put in $19,500. That's what I can max out at. So already, if I'm an employee, well, I might rather have the 401k than the IRA, right? Because I can put more into it. This, I max out much sooner than that. What are some of the other benefits? Why would I want a company to have a 401k? We'll talk in a moment. I might get some sort of matching, which says my company gives me money for every dollar I put in, right? I might want something like that. We'll also see that in 401ks, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times the funds that I can invest in are a lot less expensive than the ones in the IRA. And the reason is because now I'm getting institutional level funds, right? I'm getting funds that are managing billions and billions of dollars, and therefore putting my money in doesn't cost them a whole lot more, so it doesn't cost me a whole lot more as part of the plan. Whereas here, it might cost me a lot more to get into plans. Now with the IRA, I might have a lot more options, right? My options are much more limited in the 401k than they are in the IRA. With the IRA, I can kind of do just about anything I want with it, and we'll talk about that in another video. But with the 401k, I might want it because again, my fees might be lower. I can give I have a higher amount that I can contribute. My contribution limits are higher. It doesn't matter how much money I make. With the IRA, the amount I put in, whether it's a Roth or traditional, is based somewhat on my income. So the taxability of this is based on my income. So if I make $1 million a year, the government says you can't really deduct a whole lot, right? Like you make $1 million, we don't need to give you any incentive, right? Here, I get to, if I'm putting in a traditional IRA, I get to deduct this contribution no matter what. I could be making $1 million a year, and I put in my $19,500, and I still get the tax deduction for this. Okay, so there are all sorts of benefits that come along with being part of a company's 401k. And if my company provides a 401k for me, it's generally a nice thing. Okay, and I realize that ERISA, so the Department of Labor, is looking down on them and making sure that what they do is in my best interest as the employee. It cannot be in the best interest of the owners of the company, because in the world of the Department of Labor and the IRS, the company owners have all sorts of other options that are available to them, right? And they're making more money, and they don't want the company owners to put in a 401k plan that is only good for the company owners. They want it to be good for the employees, because the employees don't have another option other than the IRA. So that's where the 401k is valuable. So we're going to go into this a little bit more, just so you understand who some of the players are, because again, we get these questions quite often. So you have sometimes I draw it as a triangle and then it ends up being a square or something, but you have the plan sponsor. The plan sponsor is just another way of saying the employer, the company. The person or people who own the company, that is the plan sponsor. They couldn't make it easy and just call it the employer, the plan sponsor of the 401k. These people kind of have the ultimate fiduciary responsibility. Okay, they're the ones that are in charge of choosing everything else, and therefore they kind of have this ultimate fiduciary responsibility. They have to do what's in the best interest of the participants in the plan. So you have the plan sponsor, participants. Participants are the employees. Okay, so the employees of the company are the participants. So sometimes, if you're an employee, you hear yourself referred to as the participant. That just means an employee, someone who participates in the 401k plan. Okay, so then you have an administrator or a third-party administrator, something like that. So the third-party administrator kind of keeps track of the rules. Okay, and the rules are things like who can put money, who is eligible to be part of the plan. There are eligibility rules, and some of those eligibility rules are there to protect actually the employer. So when you start at a company, you're usually not eligible for the 401k right away. And the reason is because employers don't want to have to make you eligible right away, because what if you start there, work for 6 months and leave? They've paid for you to be part, they might have matched some money, and then now they might be out some of that. It's a pain for them and everything. So they say, look, you have to be here 6 months or a year before you're eligible. The administrator, the third-party administrator, keeps track of that. They do the testing every year. What is the testing? The testing is done, again, according to ERISA rules. We do top-heavy testing. We do all different sorts of testing on these plans to make sure that they're not being done just in the best interests of the owners of the company. And so what they do is in a very rudimentary way that I'm explaining is actually very complex testing. They take all the contributions for the highly compensated employees, for the owners, etc., and then they take for the other participants. And they compare the two, and they make sure that these are not the only people contributing to the plan. If they don't have participants contributing to the plan in enough of a percentage, then the owners and the highly compensated people can't contribute to the plan. Or if they do, they just get they get a tax bill for it, right? And the reason is, again, because they want the design of the plan to be such that employees want to contribute. All right, so the third-party administrator is doing the testing every year. They're keeping track of the rules. They're keeping track of who can take distributions, right? If people make it to age 59 and a half, can they start taking distributions? If people quit or retire or get fired or whatever, they manage who can go in and out of the plan. Very important role. They get paid for this role. Sometimes they get paid a certain annual fee plus a certain amount of money per participant, because there's a lot of paperwork. There's tax filings. The 401k plan has to make a tax filing every year. The admins, the third-party administrators, are the ones who do this. Okay, so this is some level of frustration a lot of times with participants, with employees, because they don't know who these people are. And all of a sudden, I get an email and then I send it on to the TPA, and the TPA will email the employee back and they'll go, I don't know who this person is. It's emailing me about my withdrawal or something. They handle a lot of the paperwork. Then you have the record keeper, also sometimes a custodian. Right, and these are the people who, it's not real creative, they keep the records. They keep track of the account, of your account, the account that you have. So they might have what's called a platform, right? And in the platform, that's what you might log into online, that's what you might get a statement from. So it might be from a broker-dealer or a custodian. It might be from TD Ameritrade. It might be from Mass Mutual. It might be from Principal. Whoever is, ADP, whoever is managing your plan, they have this architecture, right, that says, here's what we have. You get to log in and see your particular plan. And usually they've given you a website, some sort of technology. In the past, it was phone or mail or what have you. And they keep track of all your accounts. So I put money in here, and they keep track of how much is in my account. And they keep track of my investments in the account. So within here, I get to say I want X amount in the large cap growth fund, and X amount in the fixed income fund. They keep track of how much I have. They keep track of how much is my contribution versus the match. Right? That's the record keeper's job. And the record keeper is usually the custodian or whomever. They're holding on to my account. They're holding on to my money and my investments, and they're keeping track of it. Okay, now, the TPA and the record keeper can be the same company. There's nothing against that. They just, if that's the case, they just have to do all this work, right? And they might get paid for all this work. So there's the record keeper. What the record keeper, the custodian, also does is they come to the advisor and the plan sponsor. So over here, potentially, again, this is why it started as a triangle and it becomes all these funky shapes, right? You have the advisor. Now, this can be the financial advisor. The record keeper comes to the financial advisor and really to the plan sponsor here and says, look, within our plan, within our platform here, you have access to these 1,000 funds or these 10,000 funds that are available. From that, you need to pick like 20 or 30 of them to give your participants access to. And the reason why you pick 20 or 30 of them is because if you give them access to all 10,000, they're not going to know what to do. Like you give people enough rope, they're going to hang themselves, right? So they're not going to know what to do. So what you do is you find 20 or 30 of them that fit in here, and you're deciding those based on, you as the plan sponsor are deciding based on the fees, the cost of the funds. You're deciding based on past performance. You're also deciding based on diversification, right? You need to give, as the plan sponsor, you need to give your employees the opportunity to diversify themselves. And that's diversify globally. That's diversify small cap, mid cap, large cap. That's diversify equity versus bonds, equity versus income, fixed income, that kind of thing. You need to give them the ability to diversify. So as the employee, as the participant, that's what you see. That's why you see 20 or 30 funds. You don't have access to the world of funds because most people wouldn't know what to do with them if they had all those funds. Okay, so the advisor, now the advisor, if they're just a regular advisor, is technically not supposed to help the plan sponsor choose the funds. Now, the advisor can come on as a fiduciary as well. So they can be what's called a 321 or a 338 fiduciary, which says, 338 says, we're going to choose the funds. We're going to take on the liability of choosing the funds that go in here, plan sponsor. You don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it. When we're going to manage it, we're going to benchmark it. When we see a fund that doesn't belong in there anymore, we're just going to take it out and we're going to put a different fund in. It's on us to do it. They get paid a fee for that. The advisor gets paid a little bit out of usually a percent of assets, right? A percent of assets under management here usually goes to the advisor, right? And that can be anywhere from 20 basis points up to, 100 basis points. A basis point is a percent of a percent, basically. So 20 basis points is 0.2% annually. 25 basis points, 0.25% of whatever's in here. That can go to the advisor. The advisor's job, ideally, is to do things like education, right? Education meetings. So when you should, as a participant, you should have an advisor coming in your office and explaining the 401k, explaining how it works, explaining the fund options, maybe what's going on in the markets. They should be informational and educational. Right? The advisor should also be kind of the liaison between the sponsor, the fiduciary, the record keeper, the TPA, all those things. They're helping out the plan sponsor do their job as a fiduciary, right? Because most plan sponsors don't want it. Like, this isn't their business to do. It's part of what they do to give a great benefit to their employees. But the advisor is not only educating the participants, but the advisor is educating the plan sponsor. Right, so as an advisor, we do our education. We help the plan sponsor, the employer, understand the different options. Occasionally, we, along with the fiduciary, go, you know what, we're going to help you shop this plan because it's been 3 years or 5 years, and we have to shop it. We have to make sure that it's the best possible plan for your employer. It's not the best possible, that it fits with what your employees need. Because sometimes it's not the absolute lowest fees or the most funds available, but it's not worth the time and effort and money it takes to actually move the plan elsewhere. So every so often we help the plan sponsor, and we might shop the plan, which means we look at different record keepers and their options. We look at different administrators and their options. We help make sure that everyone's fees are in accordance with where they should be. Right? So those are all the different people or parts of the plan that you have. I don't know if that really helps. Hopefully it helps. But you understand the plan sponsor is your employer, right? And they have to choose the advisor, a fiduciary, if they want to, the record keeper, which is usually the company whose name is on the statement you get, whether it be a broker dealer like a Mass Mutual or Cambridge or something, or it can be a custodian like TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or something like that. They choose the TPA. They help choose the TPA, the administrator, which might be the record keeper, might not. Who knows? And then the job is also, remember, the goal is to get a plan that is actually good for the employees, right? That should be their goal. So then what happened was, after a while, the government realized, well, there are all these 401k plans, and once we do the testing, there's a lot of failures, right? Which basically means that not enough employees are contributing. So what do? Let's give them some sort of incentive. So they created what's called a match, right? And a match is just an incentive to try to get you as an employee to contribute to the plan, right? And so you might have a 5% match. What does that mean? Again, that means if I make $100,000 and I contribute $10,000 to my 401k plan, well, 5% of my $100,000 is $5,000. That means my company, my employer, is going to match $5,000. They're going to put in $5,000 of their own dollars into the plan in my name. And again, the record keeper is going to keep track of X amount was mine and X amount was match, right? So I have $10,000 in the mine, $5,000 in the match. I still get to decide where this invested. That's my job as the employee to decide where it's invested, what funds. But that's that's how the match works. And the idea is to try to get more people, more employees to actually contribute to their 401k plans. So they said, okay, we're going to get the employers to match some of this. And that comes straight out of the employer's pocket. So if you have a match, if you work at a company that has a 401k plan with a match, you're in good shape. You're getting free money, right? Every $5,000 I put in here, every 1% of my income, the match is based on income. Every 1% of my income I put in here, they're going to match me dollar for dollar. If I put 5% of my income in here, I essentially get 10% going in the 401k plan. That's a pretty good deal. All right, again, I'm not telling you have to do it. I'm not giving you advice here. I'm just saying this is how it works. Sometimes employers do what's called a safe harbor match. I'll talk about this more in the employer's video, but a safe harbor match basically makes it to where the testing doesn't really matter anymore. The employer can now max out their contribution. And that's what the employer wants to get to, probably, is maxing out the contribution. But ideally, this plan should be because the employer wants to help you, the employees. They want to give you better benefits so that you'll stay working at the company and enjoy it, right? So you decide, you as the employee, you get to decide how much you're going to put in, right? Or if you're going to participate, right? That's decision number one. Am I going to participate, right? So you have a yes or no. So if you choose yes, then you go, all right, am I going to do traditional or a Roth? If a Roth is offered, remember Roth is post-tax money, traditional is pre-tax money, all right? Then I choose what percent of my income am I going to contribute? Am I going to get a match on that or such? And then I choose the funds, right? So I probably get a fund lineup. I probably get, anywhere from 20 to 30 funds, and I can choose how I want them. It can be, small cap, large cap, however I want to invest, and that's might be where I get the help of my financial advisor on that. I probably have some low-cost, like index funds in there that just track the S&P 500. I probably have target date, and target date funds basically are for set it and forget it type funds, right? So there might be a target date fund that is target 2050, right? And what that means is you're investing in this assuming you're going to be around age 65 or 70 in the year 2050. So this fund is going to be managed for you with the assumption that it's going to be more aggressive the farther off you are from the date, because you can handle the volatility. You don't care. You're just putting money in. And as you get closer to 2050, it's going to become less and less aggressive. It's going to be more conservative, because the thought in the managers is that you're going to start pulling money out. You can't afford a big loss. If it's like 2048, they're going to be mostly in bonds or fixed income, right? Now, target date funds, I will say this again, not giving financial advice. Target date funds are what we've seen. The last statistics I saw was people who, I'll say this, the active funds, or the funds that are in plans, usually outperform the target date funds. However, if you look at the individual investors, if I invest my money in my choice of funds or in target date, usually the people who invest in the target date funds perform better. Their accounts perform better, and the reason is because those people aren't trying to time the market. They're not trying to choose which to get in and out of and outsmart themselves. All they're saying is, look, I'm putting money into my 401k. I just want to set it and forget it, not really look at it too much until I get closer to retirement, or I talk about it with my financial advisor or something. I'm just going to throw it in the target date fund, and therefore they're not subject to the market timing. They're not trying to time the market. They're not trying to go, man, I think the market's overbought. I'm going to get out now. They're just continually putting their money in, going to work, and they'll look at it again when they get to like age 55 or something. So again, not giving advice. That's just how the numbers have shaped up. So I hope that helps for 401ks. There are different people that you call for different purposes. They get paid in different ways, right? The third-party administrators a lot of times will get compensated based on the just having a plan and the number of participants. You have the choice to contribute or not, or participate or not. Okay, and if you check yes, then you can go, traditional or Roth. Again, this is something you can choose based on cash flows and based on how much you want to contribute. You choose the percent, so it's usually a percent of your salary, percent of your income. That's usually how it's chosen. Hopefully you get some sort of match. Then you're going to choose your funds, and you want to know who the people are you call for some of these things. You usually have an advisor, and hopefully your advisor will educate you. That's kind of their job, and you can call them for certain issues when you want distributions and all that, and your advisor or whoever the administrators will probably get you to whomever you need to get to, whether it's the third-party administrator or the record keeper or something. But I just wanted to make it clear, because a lot of times we get frustration from participants or employees that say, I need a distribution, or I need to make changes to my funds, or I need to understand it better. And we go, well, that's the third part. We need to talk to the TPA, the third-party administrator. We need to talk to the record keeper. And here's, these employees or participants going, I don't even understand. I thought you're the advisor. You're the one getting paid. You should be doing this. And what we have to say is, look, the administrator is the one. They're the ones doing the rules. They're the ones doing the tax filing. They're the ones making sure that you can or can't participate, or can or can't make distributions or whatever. That's their job. I'm not even allowed to do that. I have to offload that to somebody else. So I apologize, or as an advisor, we apologize if we feel like we're pushing you as the participants or the employees to someone else, but that's just how it works. These people, the third-party administrators, their role and their job and what they get paid for is to make sure that the plan is following certain rules. Then you have the record keeper, who again you a lot of times see in your statement as like a TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or Schwab, or it might be like a Mass Mutual Principal, that kind of company. Someone like that might be your custodian or your record keeper. And that's the company that's going to keep the website and keep track of your funds and all that, and they might or may not be the same as the administrator. So there are a lot of hands in this. There are a lot of government entities, or there are a lot of government organizations that are part of it, the IRS, the Department of Labor. You'll hear ERISA a lot. But we as advisor, admittedly, we throw around terms because we talk about them every day, and as participants and employees, you just might not understand, just because it's our world. Just like when you talk about your business, we don't always understand it, right? So I wanted to make sure you understand, when you're investing in your 401k, you're putting money away in either a pre-tax or post-tax way so that you can access it later in retirement. The point of the 401k plan, from the government's perspective, was to make sure employers put it in place for the benefit of the employees. You can put away more money in the 401k than you can in an IRA. So the idea is to set aside money for retirement. You get to choose the funds you invested in. The reason why you only have a certain number of funds is because if you had every fund available to you, it would just be overwhelming and too much, and people would never invest. So we hope you understand. We hope this made it a little easier. We hope you enjoyed the videos. We hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next video.